In the ruins of a forgotten castle, villagers whisper of a noblewoman who bathed in the blood of the young to cheat death itself. Her beauty was legendary, her cruelty unspeakable. Over 300 vanished into the darkness beneath her tower, never to return. But when her reign of terror finally ended, the punishment she received was more horrifying than death itself. This is the true story of Lady Seraphina Delyra, the Crimson Lady of Valoria. Section 1, Whispers in Stone. The ancient walls of Valor Keep stood like jagged teeth against the pale winter moon. The fortress had been abandoned for centuries, yet on certain nights, the villagers swore they could hear faint screams drifting on the icy wind. They came from the tallest tower, the one blackened with age and scarred by lightning. If you dared to step inside the ruin, you would find yourself surrounded by shadows and echoes. The air was cold and damp, carrying a metallic tang that clung to the back of the throat. In the heart of the keep, deep beneath the earth, lay a chamber that had once been sealed shut. It was said that long ago, Lady Seraphina Delyra had been entombed alive within those walls. And though her body had long since turned to dust, her story still lingered, staining the stones with memories too dark to fade. It began in 1608, in the dying days of the Kingdom of Valoria. In the deepest recesses of the keep, a single candle flickered, casting trembling shadows across a figure seated in a great iron tub. The liquid inside was dark and thick, almost black in the wavering light. It steamed in the bitter cold. Seraphina's once radiant face was pale and lined with age, though she had spent her life trying to deny the passage of time. Her hands, delicate and adorned with rings, glided through the bath, stirring the crimson liquid. A dreamy smile curved her lips. "Perfection," she whispered, her voice trembling with ecstasy. "The youth of another, flowing into me." Beneath the tub, a crude drainage system funneled away what remained of the victim. Nearby lay the pale, lifeless body of a young maid, no older than 16. The girl's glassy eyes stared toward the ceiling, her mouth frozen in a final, silent scream. This, Seraphina believed, was the secret to eternal youth. The girl's only crime had been tugging Seraphina's hair too roughly while brushing it. For that, she had been stripped of life and reduced to nothing but fuel for the lady's vanity. Seraphina's name would one day be remembered in hushed tones across the land, synonymous with cruelty beyond imagining. Yet to understand how a noblewoman became a monster, one must first understand the world that shaped her, and the family that gave her both the power and the madness to kill without remorse. Section 2, Bloodlines of Power. Seraphina Delyra was born in 1564, into one of the most powerful dynasties in Valoria. The Delyras were famed warlords and political puppeteers, whose influence extended beyond the kingdom's borders. They held vast lands, private armies, and wealth beyond measure. But their legacy was not merely one of power, it was one of darkness. For generations, the Delyra family had practiced strict intermarriage to keep their bloodline pure and their dominion secure. The result was a family tree twisted by madness. Seraphina's uncle, Lord Gavriel, was known for fits of uncontrollable rage. Her aunt, Lady Isara, practiced forbidden arts in secret, whispering incantations over herbs and powders in the dead of night. Some said she could call spirits to do her bidding. Seraphina herself was a precocious child. She was strikingly beautiful, with pale skin and haunting violet eyes that seemed to drink in every detail of the world around her. She was educated far beyond most noblewomen, learning to read and write in 5 languages. She discussed philosophy with scholars, rode horses like a warrior, and carried herself with a grace that demanded attention. But while her tutors filled her mind with knowledge, her family filled her heart with poison. In the private chambers of the Delyra estate, she learned lessons unfit for polite society. At 11 years old, she was forced to witness her first execution. A peasant accused of stealing grain was dragged before her father. Instead of a quick death, he was sentenced to a slow torment meant to inspire fear in the serfs. Seraphina was brought to a high balcony overlooking the courtyard. She pressed her small hands against the icy railing as she watched the man stripped naked, bound to a post, and left to freeze in the night air. His screams echoed through the stone halls, but Seraphina's father silenced her when she whimpered. "Do not look away," he commanded coldly. "Power demands more than gold or armies. It demands that others fear you." The man's skin turned blue, then black. His cries dwindled to whispers, and finally silence. Young Seraphina did not weep. She stared at the corpse below and felt something stir inside her, a strange, intoxicating thrill. Years later, she would tell a confidant that this was the moment she first understood true power, the ability to decide, with a single command, whether another human being lived or died. Section 3. The Black Knight's Bride. When Seraphina turned 15, her marriage was arranged to Lord Cale Vaynar, a famed commander known as the Black Knight of Valoria. Cale was a fearsome warrior who had led countless campaigns against the invading Scaroth clans. His reputation for brutality was legendary, and the union between him and Seraphina was as much a political alliance as a personal one. At first, Cale was captivated by Seraphina's beauty and intelligence. But he also recognized in her a kindred spirit, a taste for control, for cruelty. While most noblewomen were expected to be docile companions, Seraphina became Cale's partner in both politics and punishment. When Cale returned from campaigns, he brought not just spoils of war but also the darker arts of interrogation he had learned from prisoners and enemy generals. "You can learn much from a man before he dies," Cale once told her, his eyes glinting as he tightened a rack holding a trembling spy. Seraphina watched with fascination, noting every detail. Their private life soon became a twisted game. Servants who displeased them were subjected to brutal punishments in the castle's dungeons. At first, Seraphina merely observed, but under Cale's encouragement, she began to experiment with her own methods. She discovered a fascination with the human body's fragility, the way a single cut could unravel a life, the way terror could make a person betray even their deepest secrets. One night, after a particularly violent session, Cale kissed her blood-spattered hand and whispered, "You have the heart of a queen, my love. A queen who rules through fear." But Cale's endless wars eventually caught up with him. In 1602, he fell ill and died suddenly. Some whispered it was poison, others said it was a curse. Seraphina, now a widow at 38, inherited his vast lands and armies. For the first time, she ruled alone. The deaths did not stop. Without Cale to temper her, Seraphina's cruelty deepened. What had once been occasional punishments became ritualistic acts of slaughter, always hidden beneath layers of deception. Servants who vanished were said to have run away. Stable boys were reported trampled by horses, though their bodies told different stories. And then, one fateful day, Seraphina discovered the secret that would transform her from a mere tyrant into a legend of horror. Section 4. The First Bloodbath. It happened by accident. A young maid, Leora, was brushing Seraphina's long black hair when her hand slipped, tugging painfully at a knot. Seraphina, already irritable, struck her across the face. The blow was so violent that one of Seraphina's jeweled rings sliced Leora's cheek, sending a spray of blood across Seraphina's hand. As she wiped it away, Seraphina noticed something strange. Where the blood had touched her skin, the fine lines of age seemed to fade, replaced by a youthful glow. Her breath caught. "What is this?" she whispered, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Leora whimpered, clutching her face. "My lady, please forgive me." But Seraphina's mind was already spinning. Could it be possible? Could the lifeblood of the young restore her fading beauty? Driven by sudden, overwhelming desire, she ordered her guards to seize Leora. The terrified girl was dragged to the dungeon, where Seraphina, shaking with anticipation, slit her throat herself. The warm blood was collected in a silver basin. That night Seraphina bathed in it. As the crimson liquid clung to her skin, she felt a rush of vitality unlike anything she had ever known. Whether the change was real or imagined, it didn't matter. Seraphina believed with every fiber of her being that she had found the key to eternal youth. From that moment on, murder became not just a pastime, but a necessity. Section 5. The Inner Circle. Seraphina could not carry out her grim new rituals alone. To sustain her dark pursuit of eternal youth, She needed loyal accomplices, those who would obey without question, either out of fear or because they shared her taste for cruelty. Over the next year, she gathered a select group of followers, each chosen for their skills and silence. The first was Mara Vaith, an old midwife and healer who had served Seraphina's family since before her birth. Mara was deeply versed in herbs and ancient rites, whispered to her by her mother and grandmother. Some villagers claimed she was a witch. Whether true or not, Mara's knowledge of poisons and potions proved invaluable. "You must never let the blood grow cold," Mara warned Seraphina one night as they stood over a bound servant girl, the basin ready beneath her feet. "Its power fades with each passing heartbeat. It must be taken while life still clings to the body." Seraphina listened with rapt attention, treating Mara like a dark priestess guiding her through sacred rituals. Next came Tuvin Krell, a hulking brute with a violent past. Once a soldier under Kale's command, Tuvin had been discharged for excessive brutality. He was fiercely loyal to Seraphina, partly out of devotion, partly out of lust, and partly because she paid him handsomely. Tuvin became her executioner and enforcer, personally overseeing the capture of victims. Then there was Ira Sen, a quiet and calculating young woman who served as Seraphina's personal maid. Unlike the other accomplices, Ira was not driven by fear or bloodlust. She was simply fascinated by Seraphina herself, her beauty, her charisma, her unyielding will. Ira's devotion bordered on worship, and she would do anything to please her mistress. Finally, Seraphina recruited Corvin Dask, a stable master with a talent for deception. Corvin's task was to dispose of bodies discreetly and fabricate convincing lies about the missing servants. Together, they formed a dark council, each playing a role in Seraphina's growing empire of death. Their first major task was logistics. Mara insisted that the killings be ritualized for maximum potency. Victims were to be chosen young, healthy, and beautiful, symbols of vitality. They were stripped, bound, and tortured slowly to purify their blood through fear and suffering. "The essence of youth lies not just in flesh," Mara whispered as she traced sigils on the dungeon floor with chalk. "It lies in the spirit. Terror sharpens it. Pain concentrates it. Only then will it truly renew you." Seraphina believed every word. Over time, the castle's lower levels were transformed into a labyrinth of hidden chambers. Heavy doors muffled screams, while stone drains carried blood into collection vats. Incense burned constantly to mask the stench of death. The first few murders were clumsy, with mistakes and near discoveries. But as the months passed, the group became frighteningly efficient. By 1604, they had developed a seamless system. Villagers were lured to the castle with promises of work. Servants who angered Seraphina vanished overnight. Families who asked questions were paid off, or silenced permanently. The bodies were disposed of in various ways. Some were buried in secret graves on the castle grounds. Others were burned in great pyres disguised as waste fires. Occasionally, Tuvin fed the remains to the hunting dogs. The disappearances were noticed, of course. But the poor had little voice, and those who ruled them cared even less. As long as Seraphina's taxes were paid and her loyalty to the crown remained unquestioned, no one dared to interfere. Seraphina's power grew unchecked. Section 6. Rituals of Blood. The killings evolved from mere necessity into elaborate rituals. Each death was staged as a ceremony, with Mara chanting in a guttural, ancient tongue while Seraphina prepared herself like a bride on her wedding night. One of the most feared rites was called the Crimson Renewal. The victim was suspended upside down from iron hooks, their wrists bound tightly so the blood would flow more slowly. Candles lined the chamber, their flames flickering like restless spirits. As the victim wept and pleaded, Mara scattered herbs onto the coals, filling the air with a pungent, dizzying smoke. Seraphina would approach in a crimson silk gown, her pale skin glowing in the candlelight. She would stroke the victim's hair gently, speaking in a voice like honey. "Do not fear," she would whisper. "Your beauty will live on through me. You will become part of something eternal." Then, with a sharp ceremonial dagger, she would open their veins with precise cuts, allowing the blood to cascade into the waiting tub below. As the life drained from the victim, Seraphina would step into the crimson bath, gasping as warmth enveloped her. She swore she could feel the youth soaking into her own flesh, smoothing away wrinkles, banishing fatigue. After each ritual, she would stand before a mirror, trembling with ecstasy. "Look, Mara," she would say, turning her face side to side. "The years vanish. I am radiant again." Mara would bow deeply. "Your beauty defies time, my lady. The blood obeys you." Of course, the effects were temporary at best. Within weeks, the signs of aging would return, driving Seraphina into desperate fits. She demanded more victims, more ceremonies, convinced that a greater quantity of blood would bring permanent renewal. By 1606, the killings were happening weekly. The dungeon floor was perpetually stained crimson, and the very walls seemed to hum with the echoes of agony. Ira, though initially silent, began to keep a secret journal. In it she described the horrors in chilling detail. Tonight the lady chose a girl named Celine. She was no more than 14. Her hair shone like gold. When the blade touched her skin, she did not scream at first, only stared at my mistress with wide, questioning eyes. The silence was worse than the cries. I do not know how many more I can watch before my own mind unravels. But still, Ira never betrayed Seraphina. Her love was too strong, her fear too deep. Section 7. The Noble's Daughters. For years, Seraphina's crimes were hidden beneath layers of lies. Peasant families lacked the power to challenge her. Villagers disappeared, and the world went on. But as Seraphina aged, her obsession deepened. She began to believe that peasant blood was weak, that only the lifeblood of noble maidens could truly preserve her beauty. "It is not enough," she hissed one night, slamming her fist on the table. "The essence of commoners fades too quickly. I need blood of higher lineage. Blood as pure as my own." Mara hesitated. "My lady, that is dangerous. Noble families have influence. They will notice." "Let them notice," Seraphina snarled. "My youth is worth any risk." Soon after, she began inviting daughters of lesser noble houses to Valoria Keep under the guise of offering them education and refinement. Parents, eager to strengthen ties with the powerful widow, gladly sent their girls. The first was Lady Evelyn Roast, a delicate girl of 16 with a shy smile. Seraphina treated her kindly at first, teaching her court etiquette, praising her beauty. Evelyn wrote glowing letters home, letters that Seraphina herself had dictated. 2 weeks later, Evelyn was dead, her blood used in a particularly lavish renewal ceremony. Her family received another forged letter claiming she had eloped with a mysterious suitor. But Seraphina could not stop at one. More noble daughters came, and more vanished. Soon rumors spread. Whispers of disappearances, of strange lights in the castle at night. Parents began to grow wary. Some refused to send their daughters at all. The turning point came when Lady Muriel Vale, daughter of a powerful duke, went missing. Her father, unlike the others, did not accept Seraphina's lies. He sent men to search the surrounding villages, demanding answers. It was then that the fragile veil of secrecy began to tear, and Seraphina's reign of terror edged toward its inevitable downfall. Section 8. The Fall of the Crimson Lady. By 1610, the whispers surrounding Valoria Keep had grown too loud to ignore. The disappearances of noble daughters threatened to destabilize the entire region. Duke Vale, furious over his daughter Muriel's disappearance, rode to the royal court and demanded action. The king, long resentful of the Delyra family's vast wealth and independence, saw an opportunity. He appointed Lord Garrick Thallon, a seasoned investigator and distant cousin of Seraphina's late husband, to lead an inquiry. Garrick was methodical, patient, and utterly incorruptible, qualities Seraphina's household had never faced before. Garrick began quietly, speaking with villagers and servants who had fled the keep. Their testimonies were chilling, screams echoing through the night, carts leaving the castle under heavy tarps, dogs returning from the forest with human bones. At first, the royal court dismissed these tales as peasant superstition. But when Garrick presented a blood-stained scrap of noble silk bearing the Vale family crest, skepticism vanished. Seraphina, meanwhile, descended into paranoia. The rituals no longer satisfied her. No matter how many victims she bled, her reflection showed only an aging woman consumed by terror. Her once perfect face was now a grotesque mask of desperation. One stormy winter night, Ira confronted her mistress privately. "My lady, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "The people whisper your name with fear. Lord Garrick comes with soldiers. We must flee before—" "Silence!" Seraphina shrieked, striking Ira across the cheek. "Do you think I would abandon my work? My destiny? Let them come. They will kneel before me, as they always have." But even as she raged, Seraphina's inner circle began to fracture. Tuvin drank heavily, muttering about the things he had seen. Corvin plotted to escape with gold he had stolen. Even Mara, Seraphina's most devoted adviser, began to doubt her lady's sanity. On December 29, 1610, Garrick struck. At dawn, his soldiers stormed Valoria Keep. The first thing they encountered was the smell, thick, cloying, unmistakable. As they descended into the dungeons, hardened warriors wept at what they saw. Dozens of mutilated bodies, some still warm. Implements of torture gleaming in the torchlight. Ritual markings scrawled across the walls in blood. In the deepest chamber, they found Seraphina herself, standing naked in a steaming crimson bath. She smiled serenely, as if welcoming honored guests. "You dare intrude upon my sanctum?" she hissed. "I am eternal. You are nothing but dust." When Garrick ordered her arrest, she lunged with a dagger, screaming incoherently. Tuvin attempted to defend her but was struck down by arrows. Mara fell to her knees, begging for mercy, while Corvin tried to flee and was cut down at the gates. Only Ira surrendered quietly, her face pale with grief and relief. The evidence was overwhelming. Garrick presented journals in Seraphina's own hand, detailing the murders with chilling precision. Witnesses testified that over 300 women had been killed during her reign of terror. The king faced a dilemma. Executing a noblewoman of Seraphina's stature could provoke rebellion among the powerful houses. But allowing her to live freely was unthinkable. Thus, a compromise was reached. Seraphina would be walled alive within her own tower, sealed away from the world she had terrorized. The sentence was carried out on a cold winter morning. Seraphina screamed and cursed as bricks were laid, her voice growing hoarse as the final stone closed off her last glimpse of daylight. "You cannot kill me!" she shrieked from within the darkness. "I will return! My beauty will never fade!" But her cries dwindled over the following weeks. By spring, there was only silence. For 4 years she lingered in her stone tomb. Guards reported hearing her muttering to herself, laughing one moment and weeping the next. Some swore they heard other voices answering her, whispers too faint to understand. On August 21, 1614, Seraphina was found dead, slumped beneath her mirror, her once glorious features twisted in a final rictus of rage. She was 50 years old. The people rejoiced at her passing, but her legend only grew. Valoria Keep was abandoned, left to crumble. Travelers who pass the ruins today claim that on stormy nights, faint screams can still be heard from the tower where she died. Historians debate the truth of her story. Some say the tales of bathing in blood were exaggerated by political enemies. Others insist the evidence was undeniable. But all agree on one thing: Lady Seraphina Delyra, the Crimson Lady of Valoria, stands as a chilling reminder of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely. Her beauty faded. Her empire crumbled. Yet her name lives on, a whisper of terror carried on the cold night wind, proof that even centuries cannot silence the echoes of madness.